Hi guys, how are ya? I am back to my working at my laptop in my armchair, back home, not in the hospital, which is good. And I don't know. I just want to say hi to y'all. Yes, there's still snow, but yes, the snow is gonna melt at some point. Don't know when, but hang in there. I know. Sometimes I get stir crazy like now. And I'm like, I could start my seeds. It's still a little early. I could plan my garden. That's something that definitely can be done now. And you look to see, what did I use? What did we eat as a family or as an individual? What flowers did I actually cut and bring in the house and enjoy? What do I want to see more of next year or this coming growing season? What worked well and what didn't work well. So, for example, I had squash growing up the trellis, and that worked really well. My birdhouse gourd squash took over one of the cattle panel trellises, basically. That worked pretty well. I had pie pumpkins on a trellis. That worked well. So did the guguza, and I like that. I'm going to grow that again. And guguza, and so did the really long yellow ones, the Tahitian melon gourds. Those worked really well in the trellis. So I'll probably do those again. Now, I tried to grow some Amish melons on a different trellis, the one where the onion and carrot bed was, or is, but those onions and carrots were too close to the trellis, and the stalks I found were so tall that the little melon seeds really didn't get a fighting chance, because I sowed them directly into the soil. So they didn't get the sun, and they didn't get what they needed to really do well. I also had cucumbers there, and I think it was the same problem with the cucumbers, is that they didn't get enough sun. So I had put those two with the onions and carrots, because the onions and carrots like to be watered often. They're water hogs. So I figured if I put all the water hogs together, then I would, be killing two birds with one stone. And I think if I do it that way again next year, or this coming growing season, either I will start them early, and then just plant them as a plant start, or I will make sure that they're like to the furthest south part of the trellis. So, yeah, the furthest south part, so they get the most sun. So they're not covered up by the onions and the carrots growing. Because I'm probably going to grow those again in the same place. I have my garlic in the same place. I'm probably going to grow this again in the same place. Anyway, now's a good time to do that kind of thing and look at your garden and see what worked and what didn't. Do you remember yourself on your hands and knees trying to find beans because you planted bush beans? Do you remember yourself reaching into tomato foliage through a cage, trying to find those tomatoes, trying to find those hornworms and things like that? Maybe you don't want to do it that way this year. Maybe you want to grow it more vertically. It's okay. It's a good time to think about that. Think about what made gardening unpleasant. Was it pulling weeds? Was it bugs that came into the garden, and like squash bugs? Think about what made things unpleasant or that took a lot of work, and remedy those. Figure those problems out, or some solutions you can try this year that you didn't try before. One example comes to mind for me is I have a container right outside my mudroom door, which is like a half barrel. And I was growing, what was I growing? I was growing, a couple tomato plants up a tall garden stake. And then I had sweet potatoes on the bottom growing in the soil. But sometimes I'd forget to water. And I could tell when it needed watering because the tomato leaves would start to wilt. Well, I found a guy who recommends doing, what's it called? Wicking. Wicking tubs, where he puts milk jugs in the bottoms of the container. So this is like a half barrel, like a half a whiskey barrel container, like that size. And he puts milk jugs in the very bottom of the container, all around the outside of the container, inside the container on the outsides, you know, touching the sides. He drills holes in the tops and holes in the bottoms of the milk jugs with a cap on. And then on the outside of the large container, he drills one hole, probably, I want to say 6 inches up, something like that. It's like a drain hole. And then opposite that, he puts a PVC pipe that sticks out of the soil. And so he covers those milk jugs with soil, adds some additives to the soil, puts some more soil on it till it's at the top of the container. And then he waters in the plants for the first couple weeks until they're kind of established in the soil. And after that, he can fill the container bottom, basically, with water through that PVC pipe. And he says he doesn't have to water, like, maybe, and it's container planting. He says depending on weather, he doesn't have to water, maybe every other week. And then he also has a system where if he calls it a trucker's garden or trucker's bed, something like that, where it's the same type of concept of wicking, but it's a large barrel with a 5-gallon bucket inside, and then a lid and with a hole cut, and on top of that is a fabric bag that he cuts the bottoms out, fills the soil all the way up from the in the bag and all the way in the 5-gallon bucket. But all around that space that's between the 5-gallon bucket and the outer large container, he can fill with water. And the water will wick into the soil and gradually wick up through the soil and provide water for the plant. He said for one of those, it's like it lasts a month. He doesn't have to water for a month. And he says it's good for like if you go away on vacations and other things like that. So, and the reason I bring that up is because for me, container gardening is just terrible. I usually forget to water, and I don't know, or I'm busy. I don't know. I don't make it a priority as much, and I feel bad for the plants, so I have to figure something out for that. So this is the time to think about what went well in your season, what didn't go as well in your season, and how you can make some changes. And you can ask in the discussion boards, and you can ask, you could ask me if you want to. I mean, I don't know everything. I know a little bit about a lot of things now. I don't know everything. I never will claim to know everything. But this is the time to do some research and find out what kinds of solutions you can try this year that is different than you did last year. So like for my squash, I grew a lot of squash this year. There were squash bugs. But I did see birds pecking off a lot of squash bugs, which was kind of great because I was growing them on the trellises, the candle panel arches, and the squash bugs, like in the morning, they like to be up high where it's kind of warm and sunny. And they like to like say hi to each other so they can make babies. Well, I would constantly see birds come and whoosh, grab them and grab them and grab them. And so they helped with that. But it did get kind of rainy at one point and really warm without a lot of wind. So I started getting some of that mildew. What is it called? Anyway, I got the fungus on the leaves. And so what I might do this coming year is I might plant less squash altogether. Like I might plant a squash and then a lot of beans and then a squash or pumpkin, whatever, and then something else that would grow up that isn't going to be as susceptible to the I can't think of the name, the white stuff on the leaves. So that's the time to do that. But I was just thinking, so I'm back to I'm out of the hospital, I'm at home, and they had said I had a mini TIA. And I'm like, okay, so, there's like a CVA, a cerebral vascular accident, where you can have part of your brain die. And then there's like a stroke, basically the same thing. Part of your brain dies. But then there's a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, which is like, it's like there's stuff going through your vessel, and then all of a sudden it's like, halt, we're going to stop. And then it causes symptoms, and then it like goes away, just disappears. So it's not like a permanent clot, it's like a temporary clot that causes symptoms. And so, okay, so that's like something smaller of an event. And then they said it was a mini one. Like, okay, I don't know what that means. Anyway, so I'm back to my regular work. And I did not get sleep in the hospital. Well, I did not sleep well in the hospital. But now I'm back to work. And at my lunchtime, I had to schedule doctor appointments. So I had to schedule a neurology appointment. That's like 2 weeks from today. And my primary care doctor wants to see me Thursday. And then I scheduled a cardiology exam for the 15th was the first available appointment they had, which is my birthday. And I'm like, really? I got to come see you guys on my birthday? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And when I get tired, I get punchy. So this is Punchy Tam. And I'm really dragging. I'm trying to stay focused on my work. I've got about an hour left of the clock, and I'm just tired. And I try to remind myself, I don't have to go fast at anything. I just have to keep moving forward a little at a time. And if I need a break, I can get up and walk around. And life's like that too. Sometimes you just need a break. So, for example, last week, starting Monday, and it lasted all the way till Friday. You can still hear it a little bit in my voice. But Monday through Friday, I had a terrible head cold. The runny nose and the stuffy nose, and the headache. And Monday and Tuesday was kind of, sometimes I would have chills. Sometimes I'd be really cold. Sometimes I'd be really hot. And then I had really low energy. I was just very, very tired. And I figured, okay, it's a cold. Cold lasts 7 days, give or take, with or without treatment. And I'll figure it out. That's fine. And what that meant then was I was going to conserve my energy. And I said, no, I'm not getting up early and jumping out of bed like normal to get my coffee and go do something before I do my regular work. I said, I'm going to rest. And that's what I did. So like I didn't do like any planting. I don't think I did anything really garden wise until like Thursday. So I knew I was going to be tired. I knew I needed to conserve the energy. Basically the only thing I did was work on my laptop and taking care of the chickens. Oh, that was the thing. So last week I was sick Monday through Friday. Started feeling better Saturday, but then that's when I had my mini TIA. But then it was either Wednesday or Thursday, and that's when Sasha, my chicken, the chicken who's laying the only large brown egg that we have, she was sick. So I brought her in, had to tend to her, and I'm just like, okay, you know what? It's okay. And so, what was it? Wednesday morning, I knew I just wasn't feeling it. And I let them know for Awanas. I was like, there's no way. And as it happened, we had a snow day. So they canceled all activities Wednesday night. So I didn't technically miss an Awana, which is good because I like the kids. I like working with the kids. But you know what? Sometimes life's just like that. And I'm to that age where I'm not going to try to just push through how I'm feeling just to get her done. I mean, it's funny because the closer I get to the end of life at some point, because we all have that time. When it's time. But the closer I get to it, the less concerned I am with like being really productive and stuff. And part of my lazy gardening mentality is I want to do as much stuff beforehand, before planting or before gardening or whatever. That means that during the hot summer, I'm not going to have to be weeding, or I'm not going to have to be treating for bugs. I'm not going to have to be trying to manage plants that I overcrowded and they're taking up too much space, or my pumpkins. I'm not going to have to try to harvest everything at one time because I planted too early, or because I planted everything at one time, so now they're all ready for harvest. You know, I want to think ahead. I've said before, our most important tool as a gardener is our brain. That's the most important tool we have. So think ahead. Think back to what's worked better or not in the past. And get away from your Instagram, oh, look at my beautiful eggs and tomatoes and cucumbers, and weren't they lovely, and didn't I do a wonderful job? Think of the stuff you didn't want to post on Instagram. Think of the stuff you took a picture of and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what that bug is. I don't know what that disease is, whatever it might be. Think of the fails that you had and the things you never would want to share on Instagram. And those are your things to really focus on. It was interesting. If I ever, when I was in the hospital, there were people taking me around to tests, patient transporters, and there's one who, a lot of them are going to school, but one in particular said she had a biology test coming up, and she's like, yeah, I normally work this one shift, but I switched because I got this test coming up, and I got to make sure I study. And, you know, we're talking about test strategies and studying strategies, and how she needs to make sure she knows what she doesn't know. And that should be the only thing that she studies right now for tests. Because a lot of people, and this is coming from me as a former professor, as a former lecturer, as a former program director for a college, a lot of people will really focus on all the answers that they know are right. They'll focus on the information they know really, 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 really well, because it feels good when you know things really well, and that's what they focus on. But what gets you better is to start looking at, honestly taking a look at, okay, I've got this down. These 4 things I have down really, really well. This, holy smokes, I don't even know where to start. That's stuff to start with. That is what you focus on the most. Because it feels sucky to think about it, and it's going to suck learning about it. But this is going to give you the most, I don't want to say pleasure, but the most, you're going to feel the best at the end of the growing season when you figured out what that thing is and you made it work. Then, now you've got these. Oh, but wait a minute, this slipped. Okay, so the next season, you're going to focus on this. But that's the, apparently that's the best way for test taking, because like some of the students that I would teach, they were in programs where at the end they would do certification exams, and there would be like a mock certification review book they'd have to go through. And so to help them practice, and it was like guided practice for them. I made them focus on these particular types of things that they did not know. So, for example, if it was a 100-question test, and half the class got number 50 wrong, and 3/4 of the class got number 78 wrong, and, you know, like that. Whatever questions they got the most wrong on, those were the ones that I quizzed them on over and over and over, and provided like supplemental information for them so that they would know about that. So understand where you are in your energy level. Keep your expectations realistic. Stay calm. Think backward to go forward. Focus on what you're getting wrong so far. Yes, Instagram is great for saying, woohoo, look what I did. Facebook is great. Giving your produce away is great. It feels good. But really focus on what needs improving in your particular gardens. Like, and maybe it's something like, oh, okay, you love to collect flowers, perennial flowers, and you put some perennial flowers in that every time you look out the window in the summer, you're like, ooh, that color really clashes. Okay, so then move them. It's okay. Make some changes if you want to. But anyway, take breaks when you need to. That's okay to do, to pace yourself. What else? Oh, use other people in your family. Use their strengths if possible. The wonderful woman who did my 2D echocardiogram said she's got a black thumb, and she says, but we're thinking about maybe doing a small patch just to do some tomatoes and some cucumbers and stuff. And what she did is, her husband likes getting complimented on his help that he gives. So she assigned him the task of looking up information about, how best to start a garden and where to put it and things like that. So she kind of directed his energy toward helping out that way. And, for men, they really are, you know this, women, you know this. Is this, and I'm not going to go into the binary, non-binary, cis, blah, 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 blah. Woman to woman, we usually can chit-chat, and we just shoot the bull, and we can, we just kind of get the words out, and maybe we'll brainstorm, or we'll be sounding boards, and then we'll come to some kind of conclusion. But if we were to try to do that with men, whether it's a male friend, or a male husband, or a male boyfriend, or whatever, they tend to want to fix things. So I have found through the years, it's better for me that when I'm really struggling with something, like with the garden or the homestead or the chickens or whatever, to mention to my husband, man, I just don't know how I can keep, I'm not sure how I'm going to keep these little chicks away from the big chickens, so they don't get pecked on. Or, I'm not even sure. Like different, for the first couple of years we had the greenhouse, I was complaining I can't grow anything in the winter. And every time he'd say, well, why don't you heat it? But I didn't want to go looking into that and say, how do I heat it? But since I put one heater in there with a thermostat that monitors what the temperature is, and it will click on when it needs to get warmer, and it clicks off when it's at the right temperature, it's like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. So don't try to do everything yourself. And overall, enjoy the process. If there's a process you are not enjoying, then please don't do it. One example for me is okra. I wanted to grow it because I'd never grown it before, and I thought it would be interesting, and somebody out there might want to grow it, so I figured, well, I want to know about it. But they grow so fast. They really grow so fast. They're like asparagus. Asparagus grows really fast in the spring, super fast. And so if you want the tender asparagus, you got to grab them when you see them coming up, or you're going to miss out and they're going to be too woody. It's very similar with okra. Like if you don't get them at the right length, then if they're a little bit over that length, now they're woody and they taste terrible. Like they're woody. They're like cardboard if you try to chew them. But if they're still within the tender growth, then they're good. And so if you don't go out there every day, like every morning, and clip off the okra, the small okra, as they're small, then you're going to miss out. So that is, I do not like to grow okra. There are people that do. But those are some examples. Anyway, this break time, this little break is over. This little rest time's over. I better get back to work. Doing the job, the full-time job that allows me the resources to do the thing I really love, and that would be the gardening and the helping you guys and the designing and the building. It is so cool. And so far, knock on wood, got all my faculties about me, got all my limbs working, and started, what did I start? Low dose aspirin and vitamin B12. I was low on that. And then They want me to start a statin, and I don't want to take a statin because I've heard about how it can, there are side effects I don't want to happen to me. So and my blood pressure was high in the hospital. So I'm going to go by way of exercise. So I'm really getting no exercise. I tried to say, well, I walk out to the greenhouse every day. That's not really exercise. By way of exercise and still modifying diet and weight loss. And by losing weight, exercise, and modifying the diet, I hope to get that blood pressure under control so I don't have to take meds. The less meds I have to take, the better I am as far as happiness goes. And anyway, love you guys. It's Monday. We're almost done with January, and we are plowing into February. So if there's something that you're struggling with, go ahead and comment below. Like as far as the garden stuff or life stuff, I don't care. I'll give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. But I love you guys. See you later. Bye.